Today we're beginning a new series of classes, picking up from recent discussions on Varnashram Dharma, and also the theme that I tried to present on Janmashtami, which was the theme of success. So today we're going to look at the ashram side of Varnashram Dharma, and specifically the grhastha ashram. And then we'll also give at least one, if not two other classes on this topic, the successful family. So this topic is relevant more or less to everyone, because more or less everyone who's practicing bhakti at some time in their life attempts to have a successful family. And today we'll be looking at selflessness through saintly association. This is how the 14th chapter of the 7th canto of Bhagavatam begins. That chapter is called Ideal Family Life, so we'll be looking at that chapter over these next few classes. And the beginning of that chapter is characterized by this theme for the successful family: selflessness through saintly association. And in the next class we will look at simple living, and in the third class we'll look at detachment and service, all in the context of the successful family, the grhastha ashram. So today we're going to look at the first 4 verses of this chapter, Ideal Family Life. So that's chapter 14 of the 7th canto. And we'll begin with text number 1. I will just chant it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, chapter 14. Ideal Family Life, text number 1. Shri Yudhishthir Uvacha grhastha etam padavim vidina yena chanjasa yaya deva rishe bruhi madrisho griha mudha di. Shri Yudhishthir Uvacha, Yudhishthir Maharaj said, grhastha, a person living with his family, etam, this, the process mentioned in the previous chapter, padavim, position of liberation, vidina, according to the instructions of Vedic scripture, yena, by which, cha, also, anjasa, easily, yayat, may get, deva rishe, O great sage among the demigods, bruhi, kindly explain, madrisha, such as me, griha mudha di, completely ignorant of the goal of life. Translation. Maharaj Yudhishthir inquired from Narada Muni, O my Lord, O great sage, kindly explain how we, who are staying at home without knowledge of the goal of life, may also easily attain liberation according to the instructions of the Vedas. Srila Prabhupada's purport. In the previous chapters, the great sage Narada has explained how a brahmachari, a vanaprastha, and a sannyasi should act. He first explained the dealings of a brahmachari, vanaprastha and sannyasi, because these three ashrams, or statuses of life, are extremely important for fulfillment of the goal of life. One should note that in the brahmachari ashram, vanaprastha ashram and sannyas ashram, there is no scope for sex life, whereas sex is allowed in grhastha life under regulations. Narada Muni therefore first described brahmacharya, vanaprastha and sannyas because he wanted to stress that sex is not at all necessary, although one who absolutely requires it is allowed to enter grihastha life or household life, which is also regulated by the Shastras and Guru. Yudhishthira Maharaj could understand all of this. Therefore, as a grihastha, he presented himself as griha mudhadi, one who is completely ignorant of the goal of life. A person who remains a householder in family life is certainly ignorant of life's goal. He is not very much advanced in intelligence. As soon as possible, one should give up his so-called comfortable life at home and prepare to undergo austerity or tapasya. Tapo divyam putraka. According to the instructions given by Rishabdev to his sons, we should not create a so-called comfortable situation, but must prepare to undergo austerity. This is how a human being should actually live to fulfill life's ultimate goal. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshuanmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Up until this point, as Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport, Narada has explained to Yudhishthira 3 of the 4 ashrams, and each of those ashrams has a specific type of training meant to support a person's spiritual advancement. So these, as Prabhupada explains, were discussed in previous chapters, and Prabhupada stresses in the purport that Narada Muni mentioned those first because they are essential or extremely important, he says, for fulfilling the goal of life. So that's the brahmachari ashram, vanaprastha ashram and sannyas ashram. These are the renounced ashrams, and they provide a specific kind of training, again, to assist a person's spiritual advancement based on renunciation. So the brahmachari ashram then, that's the student ashram, offers students an opportunity to master the mind and senses, to learn humility and respect and gratitude, particularly to superiors, and to study the Vedic literature. That's what students do, they study. And in the context of the Vedic culture, they study the Vedic literature. So through that study, and by the cultivation of those qualities of mind and sense control, humility, respect, and gratitude, then the student can actually understand clearly their existential situation, which, as Srila Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita, is awkward. Remember that quote that I sent you? I like that quote from the Bhagavad Gita. It really seems to hit the nail on the head. What is the nature of our situation, our existential situation in the material world? It's awkward. So through applied student life, one can actually understand that. And therefore, one can also make a plan how to get out of that awkward situation and attain the ultimate goal of life. So that is actual education. The next ashram gives retired householders a chance to prepare for death. That's the vanaprastha ashram. And the training is given there through detachment from the physical pleasures and comforts of household life by practicing austerities. Because at the age of 50, it's like the yellow light. When you're driving up towards the traffic lights, there's 3 lights. And the yellow light means that the red light's coming. So the Vedic instruction is Panchasordvam Vanam Brajet. At the age of 50, if not earlier, you should see the yellow light coming. That death is knocking on your door, and you should prepare for that by detaching yourself from the so-called pleasures and comforts of household life and practice austerities. Because if you think life in this world is austere, that's nothing compared to death. So you have to prepare for that if you actually want to have a successful life. Which means Ante Narayana Smriti, remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the time of death. Then you can consider your life a success. But that requires education as a student, and it requires detachment and austerity as a vanaprastha. So that training is given then in those 2 ashramas. And then finally there's the sannyas ashram. Someone has joined that has their microphone on. If that person could turn their microphone off, that would be great. I'm trying to see who it is. It's a number that has no name attached to it. So if that person who just joined the call could just mute their microphone, that'd be fantastic. Sannyas ashram. Now the sannyas ashram is for those who have successfully renounced the material world, and depending on the stage of their development as a sannyasi, they can either remain alone just meditating on the Lord, or they can travel and teach others by their example, through their realizations and through their words. So that's the context in which this chapter is being spoken. Doesn't seem that that person has heard the request to turn off their microphone, so I'll just turn off my speaker here. So after describing then the 3 renounced ashrams, Narada will now describe the grhastha ashram in this chapter, ideal family life. So here we have Yudhisthira Maharaj asking a question. O my Lord, O great sage, kindly explain how we who are staying at home without knowledge of the goal of life may easily attain liberation according to the instructions of the Vedas. So what's implied here is that the previous chapters have given that description of the 3 renounced ashrams, and the goal for those ashrams is clear. That goal is liberation. But Yudhisthira Maharaj he's a householder, so he's wondering, is the same goal actually possible for someone like me, he's putting himself in this position of a materialistic householder who's completely ignorant of the goal of life? Is it actually possible to attain liberation as a householder? Probably some devotees have asked that question before. if they're householders? It's a good question. That's why Yudhisthira Maharaj is asking it to Narada Muni to clarify this confusing point. And in Narada Muni's answer, we'll read that in a second, he's basically saying that yes, it is possible through the association of saintly persons. So what we're getting here in this first verse, spoken by Yudhisthira himself to Narada, is a practical example of Narada's answer to Yudhisthira's question. How is it that someone, even in family life, which is usually entangling and distracting, can actually attain liberation? Through the association of saintly persons. That's what Yudhisthira is doing. He's associating with a saintly person, and therefore he will get the required information he needs to be successful as a family person. Of course, he's a pure devotee, so although he's in the grhastha ashram, he makes, he's making it look easy, and that's what it means to be an expert at something, is you make whatever you're expert at look easy. You've seen people that are really expert at some material skill or something, and they just make it look easy. And someone who is just trying to acquire that skill just is amazed. How do they do that? Well, they're an expert. So Yudhisthira is an expert at devotional service, even though he's in the grhastha ashram, and therefore he's making this principle of successful family life, association with saintly persons, look easy. Actually, for the conditioned soul, it's not easy. Sadhu Sangha is very difficult. Why is that? Because the conditioned soul's puffed up. Conditioned soul thinks that he knows everything. Doesn't need any advice. I know me. Don't try and tell me anything. I'm good. So therefore, with that kind of rebellious attitude, Sadhu Sangha is very difficult. In other words, Sadhu Sangha requires humility, which is very difficult for the conditioned soul to manifest due to his false ego. Particularly we notice that for the male species, speaking from my own personal experience of being a puffed up conditioned soul with a huge false ego. Very difficult. It's just like the false ego perceives taking the humble position as like a violation of human rights or something. Anyway, Yudhisthira, he's a spiritual expert in the grhastha ashram. He doesn't have that hang-up of the male ego or any kind of false ego. So he's showing us the essential qualification for the successful family. That is humility. He's showing that by approaching a saintly person, Narada, and presenting himself as griha mudha di, completely ignorant of the goal of life. With that kind of attitude, we can move forward in our Krishna consciousness. It's certainly required in the brahmachari ashram, in the vanaprastha and sannyasa ashrams, and yes, it's even required in the grihastha ashram. Dare we say it? Humility is gained in student life. That's an essential prerequisite for learning. It's not like education today where you can just maintain your illusion that you're some kind of great person and still get an education. As long as you can come up with $30,000 for your university education, then yeah, that's all that's required. No, to actually get a real education in human life and spiritual life, the essential prerequisite is humility. As Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita, without humility, acquiring knowledge is really just not possible. So that's gained in student life, brahmachari life traditionally, and then that humility is supposed to carry over into household life, and then in the later phases of life where it increases. So spiritual life then is a life of humility. Material life means the opposite. It's a life of pride. I will enjoy, separate from Krishna. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but I'm going to enjoy. Don't try and tell me anything else. I've got my plans, they're going to work out. So that's the basis of material life, that pride, that I will do something, I'll be successful separate from Krishna. So real humility is based on sorry, that was not what I was going to say. If householders are fortunate, then they learn humility as students, and in which they're educated about their constitutional position. So real humility is based on real education, which is basically that we're the insignificant servants of God. How can you be puffed up when you actually understand that point? And without that kind of education and training, then one is, if one is a householder, one is not a grhastha, one is a grihamedi, right? As Yudhisthira is putting himself in that position, griha mudhadi, one who's completely ignorant of the goal of life, and who therefore pursues material goals only, not understanding the ultimate goal and how to attain it. So Narada then replies to Yudhishthira's question. Sri Narada Uvacha Grihesh Vavastito Rajan Kriya Kuravan Yadho Chitaha Vasudevarpanam Sakshad Upasita Mahamunin. Narada Muni replied, My dear king, those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood, and instead of trying to enjoy the results of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna, Vasudeva. How to satisfy Vasudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through the association of great devotees of the Lord. The householder then is generally very insular in his attempts at caring for others. He limits the care to others to the body, namely the bodies of his family members, wife, children, extended family, community. So he has to counteract that very insular, selfish approach to life by sacrificing the fruits of his work for the purposes of the Supreme Lord. That's what Narada is saying here. Therefore, Prabhupada says in his purport to this verse, the format for grhastha life should be dedication to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's how the householder counteracts that tendency towards selfishness. So the basic principle that the householder learned as a student, that we're all servants of Krishna and that everything belongs to Krishna, and therefore human life in any phase is only successful when it's dedicated to the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. That is what Narada is recommending. Prabhupada goes on to explain in his purport, in the Bhagavad Gita 6.1 it is said, Anashrita karma palam karyam karma karoti aha. Sasanyasi chayogi cha na naragnir na chakriyaha. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. Whether one acts as a brahmachari, grhastha, vanaprastha or sannyasi, he must act only for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. This should be the principle for everyone's life. Narada Muni has already described the principles of life for a brahmachari, vanaprastha and sannyasi, and now he is describing how a grihastha should live. The basic principle is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how do we do that? If we're a householder, how do we satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Prabhupada goes on to explain, the science of satisfying the Supreme Lord can be learned as described here. Sakshad upasita mahamunin. The word mahamunin refers to great saintly persons or devotees. Saintly persons are generally known as munis or thoughtful philosophers concerned with transcendental subject matters, and mahamunin refers to those who have not only thoroughly studied the goal of life, but who are actually engaged in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. These persons are known as devotees. Unless one associates with devotees, one cannot learn the science of Vasudeva Arpana, or dedicating one's life to Vasudeva, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the point, really, then, the main point of this class. Selflessness through saintly association. Saintly association is the key to a successful family, because in that association one can learn how to satisfy the Supreme Lord, and that is real success. As stated right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, Sam Siddhi Hari Toshanam. Regardless of your occupation, regardless of your lifestyle, varna and ashram, you're only actually successful if you can satisfy Lord Hari. Sam Siddhi Hari Toshanam. So therefore, as a householder particularly, you learn that in the association of saintly persons. That is the example we get here from Yudhisthira, and that is what Narada Muni is also recommending. My dear king, those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood, and instead of trying to enjoy the results of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna, Vasudeva. How to satisfy Vasudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through the association of great devotees of the Lord. Prabhupada goes on in his purport, in India, the principles of this science were followed strictly. Even 50 years ago, I saw that in the villages of Bengal and the suburbs of Kolkata, people engaged in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam daily when all their activities ended, or at least in the evening before going to bed. Everyone would hear the Bhagavatam. Bhagavat classes were held in every village, and thus people had the advantage of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes everything about the aim of life, liberation or salvation. This will be clearly explained in the next verses. So, the principle then for the successful family is, particularly for those who are earning the money for the family, is go to work to give, not to get, which can be learned only by hearing in the association of saintly devotees. And so this process, Vasudeva Arpana, gradually wakes the householder up from the dream of material existence. So this is how Narada continues his answer. Shunvan Bhagavato Bhikshnam Avatara Katamritam Shadadano Yata Kalam Upashanta Janavritaha Satsangach Chanakai Sangam Atma Jayat Majadishu Vimuchain jamaneshu swayam swapnavad utitaha. The grhastha must associate again and again with saintly persons, and with great respect must hear the nectar of the activities of the Supreme Lord and his incarnations, as these activities are described in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. Thus one should gradually become detached from affection for his wife and children, exactly like a man awakening from a dream. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, he says, the Krishna consciousness movement has been established to give grihasthas all over the world an opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita specifically. The process, as described in many ways, is one of hearing and chanting Shinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha. Everyone, especially the grihasthas who are mudhadi, ignorant about the goal of life, should be given opportunities to hear about Krishna. Now you'll notice here Prabhupada's using the term grihastha to refer to specifically to materialistic householder. So sometimes he uses the term for spiritual householders, sometimes he uses it, as he is here, for materialistic householder. Simply by hearing, by attending lectures in the different centres of the Krishna consciousness movement where topics of Krishna from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are discussed, they will be purified of their sinful inclination for constant indulgence in illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication and gambling, which have all become prominent in modern days. Thus they can be raised to the status of light. Punya Shravana Kirtanaha, simply by joining the kirtan, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And by hearing about Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, one must be purified, especially if he also takes prasad. This is all going on in the Krishna consciousness movement. So again, in text 3 and 4 here, Narada is stressing this point of association with sadhus as being the secret to the successful family. So if one rejects that process, then he is grihamedi. Grihamedi means a materialistic householder. Right? Grihamedi means I am the centre, and my wife and children and house and business and money and land and friends and society all revolves around me. That's grihamedi. Grihastha means Krishna is in the centre, and me and my wife and children and house and money and land and friends and society, they revolve around Krishna. That's the difference. And so that, practically speaking, means that someone who can associate with saintly persons and, as we hear in text 3, with great respect, hear the nectar of the activities of the Supreme Lord and his incarnations as they are described in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas, then that person is a grihastha, and they can gradually become detached from the dream of material life. He's stressing that genuine detachment is only possible by repeated hearing, not by wishful thinking. So Prabhupada goes on and he stresses this point of repeated hearing. He says another specific description here is Shrinvam Bhagavato Bhikshnam Avatara Katamritam. It is not that because one has once finished Bhagavad Gita, he should not hear it again. The word abhikshnam is very important. We should hear again and again. There is no question of stopping. Even if one has read these topics many times, he should go on reading again and again, because Bhagavat Katha, the words spoken by Krishna and spoken by Krishna's devotees about Krishna, are amritam, nectar. The more one drinks this amritam, the more he advances in his eternal life. So the householder might think, well, I've heard the Bhagavad Gita many times, when I was a student. Now I do not need to hear anymore. So here Srila Prabhupada is expanding on what Narada Muni is saying. No, you have to continue hearing. Prabhupada goes on, the human form of life is meant for liberation, but unfortunately, due to the influence of Kali Yuga, every day the grhasthas are working hard like asses. Early in the morning they rise and travel even 100 miles away to earn bread. Especially in the Western countries, I have seen that people awaken at 5 o'clock to go to offices and factories to earn their livelihood. People in Calcutta and Bombay also do this every day. They work very hard in the office or factory, and again they spend 3 or 4 hours in transportation returning home. Then they retire at 10 o'clock and again rise early in the morning to go to their offices and factories. This kind of hard labour is described in the Shastras as the life of pigs and stool eaters. Nayam deha bhajam nirloke, kashtan kaman arhate vidbujam ye. Of all living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. That's Bhagavatam 5.5.1. One must find some time for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. This is Vedic culture. So Vedic culture means the culture which is explained in the Vedas. How are you going to live the Vedic culture if you don't hear the Vedas, right? Prabhupada says one should work 8 hours at most to earn his livelihood, and either in the afternoon or in the evening, a householder should associate with devotees to hear about the incarnations of Krishna and his activities, and thus become gradually liberated from the clutches of Maya. However, instead of finding time to hear about Krishna, the householders, after working hard in offices and factories, find time to go to a restaurant or a club where instead of hearing about Krishna and his activities, they are very much pleased to hear about the political activities of demons and non-devotees and enjoy sex, wine, women and meat, and in this way waste their time. This is not grhastha life, but demoniac life. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, with its centres all over the world, gives such fallen and condemned persons an opportunity to hear about Krishna. So then the difference between a grhastha and a grihamedi is that one hears about Krishna from devotees and the other doesn't. And therefore one awakens from the dream of materialistic life and the other doesn't. So the idea is, we'll hear in the next class, is that the grihastas, they live as simply as possible, and they save time for chanting and for hearing in this asanga of devotees. They avoid the distractions and the entanglements that complicate the lives of the materialists, the grihamedis, who are over-endeavouring, right? That's one of the things Rupa Goswami explains at the beginning of the nectar instruction that will destroy your devotional service. Right? Atyahara, prayasa. Atyahara means over-collecting, and prayasa means over-endeavouring. So, and of course they're connected. So this is material life. Everybody in material life is over-collecting and over-endeavouring. And also engaging in ugra karma. Right. As Krishna says, prabhavanti ugra karmanam. The materialist thinks they're flourishing when they perform the horrendous activities of sense gratification and the necessary hard labour in so many hellish ways to earn money for that sense gratification. They think they're flourishing. Actually, kshayaya, they're destroying themselves and the world. Kshayaya jagato hitaha. So the grhastha, because they're dedicated to hearing and chanting about Krishna in the association of devotees, they can avoid this and actually become successful. Prabhupada goes on and he talks about this final point in the 4th verse. Right? So, Swayam Swapnavad Itaha. So Narada Muni has called he's called material life swapna, but it's like a dream. So Prabhupada says, in a dream we form a society of friendship and love, and when we awaken we see that it has ceased to exist. Similarly, one's gross society, family and love are also a dream, and this dream will be over as soon as one dies. Therefore, whether one is dreaming in a subtle way or a gross way, these dreams are all false and temporary. One's real business is to understand that one is soul, aham brahmasmi, and that his activities should therefore be different. Then one can be happy. Brahmabhuta prasanatmana shochati nakankshati samasaveshu bhuteshu madbhaktam labate param. One who is transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward all living entities. In that state he attains pure devotional service unto me. Bhagavad Gita 18:54. One who is engaged in devotional service can very easily be liberated from the dream of materialistic life. So this is possible for the householder if they take this advice of Narada Muni. They can gradually become detached from affection for wife, husband, children, exactly like a person awakening from a dream. So let's summarize this section. Maharaj Yudhisthira inquired from Narada Muni, O my Lord, O great sage, kindly explain how we who are staying at home without knowledge of the goal of life may also easily attain liberation according to the instructions of the Vedas. In other words, he asks, how can householders attain liberation, considering they tend to entangle themselves in home, family, finances, and the kind of distracting comforts and entertainments that just mask and dull their fear of death, basically. Particularly that happens for householders as people age. They just get more and more absorbed in the house and the money and the entertainment, and in this way they're trying to forget the reality that death is coming. All right. So Narada Muni replied, my dear king, those who stay at home as householders must act to earn their livelihood, and instead of trying to enjoy the results of their work themselves, they should offer these results to Krishna, Vasudeva. How to satisfy Vasudeva in this life can be perfectly understood through the association of great devotees of the Lord. So the sadhus, they teach a family person how to attain liberation by showing them how they can offer the fruits of their work to Krishna. And then, a grihastha must associate again and again with saintly persons and with great respect. He must hear the nectar of the activities of the Supreme Lord and his incarnations, as these activities are described in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. Thus, one should gradually become detached from affection for his wife and children, exactly like a man awakening from a dream. Repeated hearing, then, about Krishna from saintly persons brings genuine detachment. Just like when someone wakes up from a dream, they get genuine detachment from that dream. I had this very elaborate dream last night, and it was such an unusual dream. I usually don't remember my dreams, but lately I have, and I think it's since I did this Ayurvedic detox and rejuvenation. Since then I've been having some strange things going on in my waking up sleeping on my back, which I never do, And because of sleeping on the back for so long, I was really sore hips. So sore that I actually can't physically get out of bed. It's too painful to roll over. I have to get both arms and gradually just push myself up so that I can actually get out of bed without screaming. So last night I tried something different. I used this, my pillow that I usually put my head on, I put it behind myself so that I could, so that when I roll over in my sleep onto my back, I get pushed back over to my side. And it worked. But the funny thing was I had this really strange, really long dream, which never happens. So I don't know whether that's good or bad, but I was quite glad to wake up from it. Fortunately, Krishna was involved to some degree in the dream. It was such a strange dream. I was living in the flat I'm living in now, but somehow or other it was much bigger and it had all these different rooms. And in the middle of the night, I woke up because someone was breaking into the flat. So I saw these guys jumping in the window, these two guys, and then I said to them, "Hey, what are you guys doing? You guys burglars?" And anyway, we struck up a conversation, and it turned out that they were graffiti artists, and they were graffitiing the inside of the kitchen here. They'd put this graffiti up, and I was thinking in the dream, hey, I can cultivate these guys. So I started trying to cultivate them. I was like, hey, this is really cool. Yeah, can you do something about Krishna? What about over here? Strange dream. It seemed to go on for ages. It was so real, so realistic. But eventually I woke up and I realised I got that instant detachment. So that this didn't happen. This was just something that was created by my mind. So material life is compared to a dream in several places. Shukadeva Goswami says, Swapna drastur ivanjasa. Under the influence of Maya, we imagine, we dream that I am this body and things in relation to the body are mine. And that's particularly prominent in family life. The dream is expanded, like Lord Rishabdev says, Pumsa striya mituni bhava metam tiyomato hridaya grantamaho ato griha kshetra sutaptavataya janasya moho yam aham mameti. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. In other words, it's the basic principle of the dream. Based on this misconception, a person becomes attached to his body, property, home, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. So that's the dream. I am this body, and things in relation to this body are mine. So when one is single, that illusion is not so strong. But when one is married, then the tendency is that it becomes a lot stronger. So to counteract that, we have the ashram system, which, as Prabhupada explains in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, is a means to detachment. It's a means to knowledge and detachment, and all the ashrams are meant for that purpose. So just as Yudhishthira Maharaj is explaining here, is it actually possible that someone in the grhastha ashram achieves knowledge and detachment and attains the actual goal of life? Good question. And then we have Narada Muni's answers. Yes, if you repeatedly hear about Krishna from saintly persons with great respect, then that process gives genuine detachment from the dream by awakening one's real life of bhakti. You learn by hearing how to give the fruits of your work to Krishna, and you learn about your real life in Krishna consciousness, and in that way, gradually, you wake up. So, to conclude, the key to successful family life, as we hear today, is to learn how to live selflessly by saintly association, which means hearing from and serving saintly devotees. Therefore, a family person who desires success, liberation, must seek this association and with great respect hear from and serve devotees. Hare Krishna. So we'll ask if anyone has any questions. We only have Bhakti Trent here in person, so to speak. But we have several people online. But I will just need to use the bathroom quickly. Wow. We just instantly doubled our attendance here because Balaram joined us. Thank you, Balaram, for making an appearance this morning. So does anyone have a question today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare. Can you hear me okay, Prabhu?
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Was that do you have a question?
Can you hear me okay, Prabhu?
Yes.
This question? Okay, thank you. I was just going to ask, we hear this notion of family life being compared to using a thorn to remove another thorn. We also hear notions like that one becoming attached to become detached. So I'm just wondering how that dynamic works. It's like you said, it seems like family life inevitably involves more attachment to the material world, but if it's done properly, it's also part of the progressive path of liberation from the material world. So I'm just wondering if you could explain how that works.
Household life, as Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita, in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, is for someone who's attached. They're attached to the material world. So that's the proper medicine for that particular person, is to deal with that attachment through Krishna's system. And Krishna's system works. Follow the system, you get the result. Don't follow the system, guess what? You don't get the result. It's like if you go to a qualified doctor and you take the doctor's advice, meaning you take the medicine that's prescribed for you, then you get better. Don't follow the doctor's instruction. Don't take the medicine for you that's meant for you. Try and take someone else's medicine. It doesn't work. It might even get worse. So the ashrams are just different medical prescriptions for people with different kinds of material diseases. That's all. So if we're intelligent, we see under guidance, like this example here we're hearing Yudhisthira Maharaj. He's taking guidance from Narada Muni. How do I make progress in my situation? We have to have some honest introspection and see what is my situation, and then take the prescription accordingly. That is the honest way to progress as a devotee, because pretension is not part of the Vedic system. Simply wishful thinking or pretending that actually I'm at this stage but I'm not. So therefore, again, Yudhisthira Maharaj's example of humility is the essential principle of moving forward and as a devotee. Therefore Lord Chaitanya said, chant the holy name in a humble state of mind. That's the progressive approach. When there's humility, then there can be some honest introspection, and then one can actually move forward. Otherwise we'll find ourselves at best spinning our wheels. Sometimes we go out to Ofero Bay and we see these four-wheel drives out there on the beach spinning their wheels. They get stuck in the sand and just the wheels, there's lots of energy, but they're not going anywhere. And what's required then is for someone else who's got more traction to pull them out. It's pretty austere, you know. They have to call their buddy up and I'm stuck. So we don't want to get stuck in some kind of unrealistic la-la land kind of consciousness, some kind of imaginary mental concoction about who we are and, you know, what will actually help us. We should just be intelligent and learn from people that are more experienced. That is the example we get here in the Bhagavatam. How it works in the grhastha ashram? Well, generally people go into the grhastha ashram and they have expectations, and so if they follow this advice of Narada Muni, they realise that their expectations were not very realistic. That's how it works. And then with realistic expectations, one can become a vanaprastha. Of course, we see sannyasa is not a very popular option nowadays. Does that make some sense?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Yes, Bhakti Trent.
I'm just thinking, if one half is doing their part, like reading and associating with saintly persons, and the other half isn't following so nicely, and there's no option for divorce, and sannyas also isn't really recommended, what does one do then in that situation?
Well, it's like in this section of the Bhagavatam we have Narada Muni also explaining the duties of women. Right? Like it's like in the man's side of the thing, then you have brahmachari life. That's the traditional training, education and training for a man. So for the ladies, then it's chastity, and there's 4 qualities of a chaste lady that Narada Muni explains. Right, so she should be faithful to the husband. She should be always agreeable, right? And she should be agreeable, meaning favourable to the husband. Like whatever his lifestyle is or mood, she's agreeable to that. She should be friendly to the relatives of the husband and also the husband's friends. So that's the Bhagavatam definition of chastity, what it means to be a chaste woman. But Prabhupada explains there that this does not mean that if the husband is fallen, that the lady should continue to serve such a fallen husband. Right. So that would be a very unfortunate situation. Therefore, if people are intelligent, they take care when arranging marriages. As Prabhupada explains in another part of the Bhagavatam, I think it's the 8th canto, that because today care is not taken in marriages, therefore divorce is such a prominent reality. And of course that was back in the 1970s when Prabhupada wrote that, which was 50 years ago. Nowadays, 50 years later in Kali Yuga, people don't even marry. But the point is, if someone's intelligent, then they take care in relation to this significant decision in one's life, and they do the best they can to find a person who they can work with, and more importantly, who's Krishna conscious. But if in the unfortunate situation where someone loses their Krishna consciousness, then what can be done? Our goal is to be Krishna conscious, and the purpose of all the ashrams is to assist us in that, attaining that goal. So if it's not assisting, and all attempts have been made, and it's obvious that things are, we could say, unrecoverable, then if one's smart, then one should take some guidance, like Yudhisthira is doing here, from saintly persons, and see what is the best way to proceed. What is the best thing for Krishna's service? What is the best thing for Krishna's pleasure in this situation? Yes, ideally, there's no such thing as divorce. Prabhupada does say, though, in this section about chastity for ladies, that separation is a viable option, if in the case of the husband being fallen. He says one should not serve such a fallen husband. What is a fallen husband? He says, one who's attached to the four sinful activities. So he says, if a lady unfortunately marries such a person, then obviously, what's the point? Right? Being with the person. So, yeah, it's the wrong age for for ideals. We don't have ideal brahmacharis. We don't have ideal grihastas. Generally speaking, I'm speaking generally, because as Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavatam, the training for people is not there from a young age, so therefore it's very difficult for any of us to very strictly follow the Bhagavatam standard of brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyas. But at least we know what the standard is. At least we know what to aim for. It's a great advantage. And if we take the principle, like we hear in this class, that Yudhisthira is displaying, that we take guidance from saintly persons, then we can still be successful. That's the point. Although it might not be the ideal that we hear in the Bhagavatam, we can still get the goal. We can still get the actual purpose of the ashram system, which is knowledge and detachment. By the way, I'm not saying there are no ideal people in the ashram. I'm sure there are. It's just I'm speaking generally, because people haven't had generally the training from a young age in brahmachari or chastity. It's very difficult. All that's required is that we do the best we can. Right? If we do the best we can for Krishna's pleasure, Krishna will be pleased, and we'll get the desired result of whatever situation we're in, and we'll be able to move forward. But really doing the best we can requires guidance from experienced people. Otherwise, people in Kali Yuga, particularly Westerners, we're so prone to being whimsical and just thinking about ourselves. That's Kali Yuga, right? It's all about me, how I feel, what I think. That's not the Vedic system. So we can only really get around that by the process of sadhu sangha. Does that make some sense? Yeah. Hare Krishna. It's like Gandhi said when he was asked what he thought of Western civilization. He said, I think it'll be a good idea. Nice quote. He wasn't even a devotee. But he was a human being. Anyone else have anything they'd like to ask about? Feel free, fire away.
Can I ask another question? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Balaram's got a question. Shiva, then can I? Yeah.
It was a reflection, maybe it's more important for
Okay.
people to ask the question.
Okay, Balaram's deferring to you, Shiva.
No, go ahead, Prabhu. I already asked a question. So
He doesn't have a question, he just has a reflection. So if you have a question, you can take that one.
Sure. My question was just about humility. Just wondering how we can get a sense of where we're at in terms of developing that quality.
You're wondering whether you're humble or not?
I suspect not, but...
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Probably the easiest way to see that is just to look at our attitude towards the process of guidance. What's my attitude towards that? Humility means to accept that although I may think I know myself very well and I think I know my situation very well and I'm so intelligent, actually maybe I'm a bit out of touch. Maybe other people actually know more than I do. And therefore maybe I should listen to them. It's like devotees often use this term, he or she was mental. What does that mean?
So in the mind,
What does that mean?
just thinking without acting.
Thinking without acting. Thinking without acting? Do you mean acting without thinking? Oh, you mean thinking without just buzzing around in your mind, not doing anything?
Yeah.
But why do you do that? Don't you know what to do?
It's a lack of real knowledge.
If you don't know what to do, why not ask someone who knows what to do? But why don't you ask? What is it? What's the problem? Because you think you know, right? Being mental means you're just thinking about yourself and what's best for you. And therefore you don't want to ask anybody else for any advice because they might tell you something you don't want to hear. They might tell you to actually serve Krishna instead of serving your ego. And who wants to have their life ruined by hearing that? Trying to ruin my life by telling me to serve Krishna instead of myself. That's like a violation of human rights. So that's what it means to be puffed up, to be mental. Well, that's what it means to be mental, to be puffed up. It's the same thing. It's just a different way of saying it. So, you can learn the easy way by hearing. That's first class intelligence. Or you can learn the hard way by banging your head against the wall and not listening to people that know better. It's up to you. Or that's second class intelligence, or you can just not learn at all. That's third class. Take your pick. There's three modes of nature, right? Goodness, passion, and ignorance. Someone who's in the mode of goodness can learn by hearing. Someone who's in the mode of passion, they generally need to learn the very hard way. That means hearing a very little bit, but mainly just listening to their own mind. And then someone in the mode of ignorance, they don't hear anything. Right? So you can take your pick. You've got three choices. But the easy way, we're hearing here in today's class, is shown by Yudhisthira. He's not just in the mode of goodness, he's in the mode of pure goodness. is a pure devotee. He doesn't actually have anything to learn. He's just saying this for our benefit. And he's hoping that we can at least come to the mode of goodness, whereas Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita, you can see things in the right position. You can hear things in the right position. Right? All the gates of the body are illuminated with knowledge. Right? So that's try to answer your question, Shiva. That is probably the easiest way to tell. In other words, if we're not up to that, then we should just start there. And then beyond that, of course, there are higher levels of humility, but, first things first. If we can't see our way to taking guidance from experienced devotees, then we should start there. And then we'll see as we go on that actually we're not very qualified. The challenge with humility is that we think that somehow or other if we take the humble position we're going to lose out. Because the false ego tries to tell us, and society today particularly tries to tell us that you've got to assert yourself. You've got to feel confident and do what you want to do and be who you want to be. And if you don't do that, you're just a loser. Anyone who takes the humble position genuinely is a loser. But it's actually the opposite. That's the mode of ignorance. It's actually the person that takes the humble position is the winner. Right? Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Take the humble position. You can chant the holy name in any circumstance. You're the winner. Try to chant the holy name when you're puffed up in all circumstances. Impossible. So who's the winner? So when we take the humble position, we can follow Krishna's instructions and we can be happy. Right? Therefore Prabhupada said, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But that requires humility. People in Kali Yuga are so complicated. No, it's like, hang on, it's just too simple, isn't it? Just like our Guru Maharaj was recently saying. There's 3 words, Hare Krishna and Rama. What's that going to do for me? How's that going to solve my problems? So, simple for the simple, complicated for the complicated. So you won't lose out by taking the humble position. The humble position's the natural position. If you're 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair, what's there to be proud about? Whatever we're proud about's not even... That's why it's called false pride, because it's not ours. Whatever we're proud of, it's not ours. It's Krishna's. He says, Purusham Nishu, I'm the ability in man. You're proud of your ability? Well, it's not yours. It's mine. And not only is it mine, it's only a tiny fragment of my ability. So as we become Krishna conscious more, and we understand Krishna more, we realise that more. Yeah. Krishna's got all the abilities. We're not really that qualified, actually. So it's that's really what the battle is as a devotee for quite a while. It's just coming to terms with our constitutional position. Anyway, if we're determined to keep chanting in the association of devotees, then we will make progress, and we can always make that progress quicker if we want to by taking more seriously what the devotees are saying. Does that make any sense there, Shiva?
worries. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, unless anyone has anything else, we will end the class, and the next class we will aim to have next Tuesday. Hopefully after this class I haven't scared everybody away. I do have a habit of doing that, I'm sorry. It's just my nature. What is that, just act according to your propensity and all that. I'm sorry. So the next class is about simple living. So it's called the Successful Family, Simple Living. And the main thrust of that class is that householders should live simply and open-heartedly with detachment in order to worship the Supreme Lord. This will free them from material gain and encourage them to accumulate only as much wealth as they require. And we'll be looking at subsequent texts in this chapter, beginning with text number 5. We're looking at text number 5 to 8 and text number 10. So thank you again for your good company, for your tolerance, and look forward to seeing you again in the next class, if not before. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Giriraj Maharaj. Hare Krishna.